Growing revenue feels great, but if you're not organized and you don't have an operational backbone, then you're going to run straight into chaos. Revenue growth without operational infrastructure and operational growth is like putting a Ferrari engine inside of a go-kart. It might work for a minute, but before you know it, you are so off course. Today, I'm sharing with you the 5 signs that you have outgrown your operations, that they have become the bottleneck, they're stopping you from growing, and most importantly, going to tell you exactly what to do about it. And make sure you stay for the end because number 5 is the most important one. First of all, I want to show you and tell you why it's important to understand that revenue should be growing with your systems. So, why is that important? Why should you care? If your operations are always behind and not keeping up with your revenue, then you're always going to be in constant firefighting mode. You're reactive instead of being proactive and getting ahead of your growth. Good news is that once you spot these signs, then you can get proactive. You can actually solve those problems. So, the first sign that you've outgrown your systems is you're in constant firefighting mode. When you're constantly firefighting, you have no time for strategy, no time to work on the business. You are in the business just putting out fires, and that is going to completely stall your growth. So, what that looks like is you're personally the one that the team comes to all the time for asking questions. So, what does that look like on a day to day basis? It looks like this. One, every day brings a new and urgent problem. The second one is you're personally solving issues that you shouldn't really be solving. 3 is the team comes to you with questions, concerns, everything. You are the go to for it all. Some root causes of this is there's no clear decision making tree. So, when there's no clear process in place, especially around decision making, the team is not going to feel confident about making decisions without you. What you want to be doing as a leader is empowering your team to make decisions. That means creating documentation so they know exactly what to be making decisions on, and a decision tree to say, okay, if this happens, make a decision like this. If this happens, make a decision like that. That's a great way to clarify how decisions are made within the company, but also giving them the safety net to make decisions. Even if it's the wrong one, I'd rather my team make the wrong decision and us fix it than for them to feel scared to not make a decision at all. So, really create that culture of failure is okay and it's okay to make decisions because that's how you're going to learn and empower your team. It can be scary, and that's why having documentation in place can create those guardrails for your team to confidently make those decisions without your everyday involvement. The second sign that your operations can't keep up with your growth is your team is maxed out and quality is dropping. A lot of people don't think about what happens after the marketing works. What happens after you go out there, you win the sale? What happens then? Well, somebody has to deliver on that sale. Somebody has to deliver on what you promised the customer. And if you just focus on going out, getting the revenue, but don't spend just as much time and energy on fulfillment and making sure that onboarding is in place and all those little nuances and details are documented and everybody knows who is owning what, your team is going to feel over capacity and quality will drop. Adding revenue without capacity will burn out your team so fast. What that looks like is everybody is working harder than ever, but balls are still getting dropped, deadlines are getting missed, and everybody is feeling burned out and morale is down. And that's the opposite of what you want. A lot of the things that can show up at this stage is people saying things like, I'm at capacity. I really don't have the bandwidth for that. Or just starting to get very numb reactions from your team where you can just tell that something's not quite right. So when you've added revenue, but you haven't added those operational systems that help with fulfillment, with smooth client onboarding, project delivery, all of those little details that happen after the sale is made, that's when stress rises and your team is going to start to feel at capacity and overwhelmed. So let me tell you a story about 2 companies, one who did this really well, let's call them company A, and one that did really bad, let's call this company B. We'll start with company B first, and then we'll talk about company A. So company B did this huge launch. They were so focused on getting 100 new members into their membership that they forgot about doing anything around fulfillment and client onboarding. So guess what happened? After the sale was made, the new members, it was crickets. Beyond a welcome email that just said, here's your credentials for entering into the membership, they really didn't have any true onboarding experience. Sure, they had all the resources and all the great things that the membership had to offer, but they didn't really know how to use it. They were overwhelmed. And so they actually ended up leaving after a couple of months. And so the impact on the business was loss of revenue, not only on the back end once that sale was made, but then also on the front end. They didn't really get a strong ROI on all the effort that they put into that launch. The second aspect was reputation management. Those new members were definitely not telling all of their friends about this subpar experience that they were having in this new membership. So now let's talk about the second company, the company that did it really well. First thing, they had a great launch. Throughout the launch, throughout bringing them people in, they were having constant touch points. And there's one person in particular, their client success manager, that was constantly checking in with the new members before they even became members. So they started to build a relationship with this client success manager. So anything that they needed throughout the launch, throughout learning, they could call them, they could talk with them. They're building this relationship with this person. So that's first of all, they're building relationships with, they had one person that they could go and talk to. That doesn't apply to every single business, but it's a great way to have that one point of contact and a way for people, whether if they're considering working with you, to have a good onboarding experience. So now let's talk about the company who did a really excellent job. They had a success formula. They had a success roadmap. They had one person that was checking in on them. They had multiple touch points to feel secure, to make sure that they didn't have any buyer's remorse. So that is one thing that they did really well. Another one is, remember that company that didn't do well, that they churned after just a couple of months? Because they had such a good experience in the second company, they're returning month after month after month. They're building that relationship with other people in the community, and they have a strong relationship with the company because they were so well taken care of right off the bat. Sign number 3, customer experience is slipping. Revenue doesn't mean anything if you're not delivering on what you're selling. Some signs that this is happening: your response times are getting way too long. Things are falling through the cracks more often. You have new customer complaints on things that they never used to complain about. Your team is making promises that you and them can't keep. And this is where your operational gaps are starting to become painfully evident to the clients and the customers. An example of this is one of my clients brought on a brand new client. They were so excited. It was a huge opportunity. And we noticed a few weeks in that the team was at capacity. Not only were they at capacity, they were over capacity. They had no bandwidth and morale was really starting to drop. Some signs of this were just like the ones I just described. Response times were lacking, but also the attention to detail went from 10 to 5 overnight. We started to get emails from this client that they were not happy. They were noticing the mistakes from the team, and it was devastating. We knew we needed to audit our systems and processes internally to make sure that the client was no longer having this experience. This is a great example of how when you bring in new revenue, when you bring in new clients, when you bring in more growth, and you don't have the systems and the support and the team in place to deliver on that, it can directly impact your ability to retain your clients. Sign number 4, you have no visibility into your business. When operations break down, transparency and visibility into your business also starts to break down. So what this can look like: you can't get straight answers on what's going on with the project and project status. Your financial reports are not only late, but they're also confusing. You get surprised by problems that you should have known about weeks ago. Decision-making starts to slow down because of lack of information, especially between different teams and different departments. As the business owner, you find out 2 weeks later that a really important client never received the deliverables that they were promised a week ago. Your communication systems and your metric systems all need to be firing smoothly so that you can have that direct visibility into your company and into the health of what's going on behind the scenes. All right, now we've made it to sign number 5. This is the one that's the most important one of all. So sign number 5 is you are the bottleneck in your business. So if everything is running through you, impossible to grow. You can only grow as long as you have the capacity to handle it all. And that is only going to get you so far. Here's what this looks like on a day-to-day basis. Everything needs your approval. The team is waiting on your decision or your input to move forward. And work stops when you're not available. You're working in the business instead of on the business. One of my clients recently told me that if the business can't run without you, you don't have a business, you have a really expensive hobby. And I think that's a really hard truth, but one that we all need to recognize, that if everything is dependent on you, then that's not really a business. A business has the capacity to run on systems, to run while you are going on vacation, and to run without you making an input into everything. So the same client that told me, if you don't have a business that runs without you, you don't have a business, guess what? He learned that from personal experience. Once he started delegating and actually giving his team the empowerment to make decisions without him, to rely on the systems to do what they are meant to do, which is to create consistent results over and over again, and to do it without his input on everything. He still has input on the things that he needs to have input on, but that's really just a minimal amount of things in the business at this point. Once he was able to do that, he grew exponentially in just 6 months. So now, putting this all together, these signs, while they may sound daunting, they actually signal success. You're growing, you're doing the thing that you dreamed of, and success has come to you. But now that you have this information, you have to take action so that you can continue to grow and continue to go to the next level. But not only that, you have a business that is bringing you peace, not stress, and you have a team that's empowered and excited to come to work, not low morale, stressed out, and beyond human capacity. The good news is these are really solvable problems when you have the right approach and the right mindset. So don't panic if you recognize that maybe you have 1, 2, or maybe even all 5 of these symptoms. The key is knowing where to start and how to go from here. The very first step that you can take is learning how to manage your time as the founder, as the CEO, and the owner of your business. When you really master your time management as a CEO and eliminate everything that you can delegate and only focus on the things that only you can focus on, that's how you start to build a business that runs without you. So if you want to learn more about how to manage your time as a CEO and a founder of your business and truly step into founder mode versus I can do it all mode, I put together a free course called How to Manage Your Time Without Burning Out. You can grab it using the link below. See you next time.